record the show. Hi everyone, and welcome to the Remain Indoors podcast, where we'll be looking at some lighter news from around the internet, having a grumble when required, and talking to some interesting people from our podcast and radio network. Remain Indoors. Hi, I'm your host, Richard Spanners Ready. Welcome to the stream that has started absolutely flawlessly, and there's no reason at all for me and my co-host, Matt, to rumpets, to feel stressed or upset or annoyed in any way, shape or form. Yet another flawless start to the live stream, Matt.
Nothing ever goes wrong. Life is perfect.
Okay, so basically before the show, we've mixed up our protocols of when we're starting the stream. So I said, Matt, I'm starting the live stream. Then I started talking, and you took that to mean I'm starting the stream after this sentence and said some very blue things. So sorry to the live stream and anyone who's gathered round Remain Indoors with their children. Gather round, children, where we listen to sage words from spanners and trumpets. And then you're there like, beep, 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 beep.
Yeah, well, you bring this up, but it's hilarious but true. My daughter, by age 6 or 7, was artful in the use of, what are you calling it, blue terminology, because it's unavoidable in New York when you walk down the sidewalk, because it's, people on their phones talking to each other. They figure it out very, very quickly is all I'm going to say.
I've told this story before. I think not on here though. I don't think I'll tell it again. My nephews, slightly older than my kids, went out on one of these social club parties that we have. I think it might be an Essex phenomenon, but it was like a family party down the local social. Get some cockles from the fish van halfway through. But the kids were outside. I went to check on them, and they were like 8 and 9-year-olds, I think, at the time. And they were swearing, they were effing and jeffing, thinking they were the bee's knees. They did not see Uncle Richie sneaking up on them, and they suddenly went, oh no, we've been caught by one of the grown-ups. And I went, you guys, you're such, amateur swearers. You don't even know, the good swear words. And they're like, huh? What? And if you remember from The Simpsons, there was one of the episodes where they made up a Scrabble word, a quidjibo, which is a big, hairy North American beast. So I said, well, the worst one, of course, and I went, you're not going to tell anyone, are you? Is quidjibo. So I told them quidjibo was a swear word, and then apparently, later on, they went back to their house, and they said to their parents, Uncle Richard taught us the C word, and they went absolutely ballistic, and they said for 2 minutes before they got to the truth, because suddenly then the kids didn't want to say what it was, before they got to the truth, they were cursing my name, Matt, thinking I had taught them. I think we all know which word we mean.
Yeah, except for quidjibos obviously starts with a Q because it comes from Scrabble. So I don't even know where they got the C from, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, but they just heard me saying it. Quidjibo, I guess, could be a C. This is Essex. Things are different. It's like going back to the 90s.
I guess so.
Joining us in the shed is a very clever man, Dr. Andrew Holding, whose language is always impeccable and scientific.
Is it?
I don't know. I see your household, because you are of higher social standing than us, no swears from the children whatsoever, I'd imagine.
Yeah, no, we I think it must have been a year ago, I actually sat down with my daughter, who would have been 8, 9 then, and said, what swear words do you know? Because I don't really care if you use it. Because loads of people swear in front of them, and I can't be bothered to police language. It's like, if you come around my house and you swear, and they go, oh, I sweared in front of the children. It's like,
they're going to die
I'd rather
now.
they heard it and realise that I don't care. What you don't do is swear at someone. That's the rule. But then we said, well, what swear words do you know? And she goes, oh, I know this one and that. And many of these I can't repeat, obviously. But
thank you. Not unless it's pre.
But she turned around and said, and of course there's the D word. And she'd obviously gone through all the standard Fs, all those. And she gets to, and just me and my wife are going, what's the D word? And, I'll let you trouble that because you won't let me say it.
Oh, I thought you were going to tell an amusing and cute story about how she misunderstood.
No, it's very amusing and it is very cute. It's not actually. It's a short word for Richard.
Oh, I see. Wow. See, we say.
But she thought that was really bad, but we could never use that in our house. I've never called anyone that word in my house. Where F and S and all those other ones get all the time.
Swearing is a funny cultural phenomenon, isn't it? Because Like what I say to the kids is, like, these aren't magic words. They don't have magical power. They only have the power that we assign to them. And I said, mostly, I say to them is, have a good understanding of those words and how they can be used to good effect, but understand that you are 8 and 9 and that people are going to think it's blinking weird if you use them. But I don't want them to be scared of those words, Andrew. I think that's the most important thing, isn't it? And understand that it's part of language.
I mean, also, maybe I'm wrong on this. We need to get a psychologist on this. But if they go and like shout "F you" at some point, I'm just going to laugh because it's just something that's always been there. It's not going to have any power. And if you ever do teach your kids swear words, the younger they are, the funnier it is, because little children swearing is always hilarious.
No, it's not. It's a really bad lesson. You've all learned the wrong lessons. Me and Matt and Dr. Andrew Holding. What is it? What's up, Matt? What's up?
Oh, I was just thinking of the classic joke that, of course, I can't tell about the little girl who joins the construction workers.
Print it in the live chat, Matt, and we can all have a laugh. Thank you to the chat room for joining us. Kaylee, Lucas, Taylor, Martin, Rob, Mr. Field, John, Mark, Martin, Tony. I've run out of willingness to scroll, but thank you very much for joining us. You being here in the live chat really does make this worthwhile, and thank you to the ever increasing amount of people downloading and leaving us iTunes reviews, like James's on iTunes, 5-star review. Great all-around podcast. I love it. On YouTube, he claims he was exactly the 250th subscriber, and it makes my day every time we produce one. Well, thank you very much for that feedback, and we're actually doing okay in the iTunes charts because you guys are taking the effort to go and write us an iTunes review. So really, really appreciate that. And today, we're bringing you our favorite expert friend, Dr. Andrew Holding, who is a fellow of the Turing Institute. I said it blurry enough because I never know whether it's Turing or Turing. I think I'm going to go with Turing, of the Turing Institute. His job is to cure cancer at Cambridge University and York University as well. He's a really clever man, but the thing I admire you the most for, Andrew, is your general science knowledge, and that's how I employ you in media. But the thing is, you always say, I don't know anything about that. But you do. You know much more than like me or Matt or people listening.
I mean, it's one of those things, isn't it, though, that if you know a little bit about something, you start to realize how little you know about it. So this is a real problem. That some people who know nothing about stuff get really, really confident because they don't realize quite how confusing it is.
Yeah, it's like you think you understand, I don't know, how Excel works, and then the more things you try to get it to do, you go, oh my god, this beast, I only saw the tip of the iceberg, now there's so much below it. But it's a common problem, even with things like, voting or just opinions on Twitter. People like you stay quiet because you don't know anything. People like me are like, whoa, do you know what I reckon? Hang on, I'm just getting some crisps and another point. What I reckon and what I heard from Dave over there is, and I'm more than happy to blurt out because I don't know what I don't know.
Yeah, no, it's exactly the problem. I don't know. I mean, I don't know what Matt feels about this.
In general, this is always a problem with expertise. The more you learn about something, the more nuanced you're going to be and the less committed to anything, because you realize that the edge of the knowledge constantly fluctuates and changes in terms of what we're confident of. So yeah, it is a problem. It's a lot easier to be certain of things when you don't have expert knowledge.
Okay, so Andrew, I need you to park that for today. And I just want you to act with the authority. We can do it a whole blanket caveat here at the start, which is you are not an expert in any of the fields we are talking about today. Would that make you happier to then talk freely?
Yep, no, that's true. And someone has just correctly identified what we're talking about as the Dunning-Kruger theory or effect.
Oh, so go on.
Someone very smartly put that straight in the live chat, which is this actual documented idea that people who don't know a lot about stuff really do have an overconfidence. And you can kind of quantify it. So, that's kind of the thing we're talking about.
Wow.
So, so accepting that you're now going to ask me questions which I have basically never, ever done an exam in or ever learned about officially, but have picked up from
the thing is,
around and work in a biology department. Let's go for this. Let's come up with some answers, and someone can Wikipedia me later or YouTube me later and correct me.
Well, in the spirit of science, we're always happy to go back and correct things, and nothing we say is ever intended to be definitive. But yes, in the chat room, that was Ickle Scorch, whose real name is... Oh, no! He comes to our karting. Steve. Hello, Steve. Hi. Ickle Scorch there, one of our many intelligent listeners. We must attract them due to my extreme intellect, Andrew. That must be it. Also, to make it even worse, towards the end of the show, I'm going to put the Zoom link in the live chat as well, and we might surprise you with some live callers, and we'll see how that goes. Matt, let's start in America and talk about the sciencey, naturey problem you're having.
You know, it's funny. Sometimes I still expect a bumper there, but I realize there's not one. Yeah, no, we have a new... As if...
Bumper over the top of you! You demanded a bumper and then you got one. I'm going to press it at random times when you speak now.
That's fine. It makes it more entertaining to listeners at home. Besides which, I have immunity because of my Swedish imitation.
We did get some feedback on that. I can't remember.
I got
a
tweet.
Was. Did you? Was it a tweet saying that your Swedish impression yesterday made their day? Yeah, go on.
Yep, that's the one.
Okay, but what less Swedish and more murdery things are you having to deal with in North America?
Well, yet again, we have a problem with animals that have, in all likelihood, hitched a ride to our western shores. And they have been dubbed, I guess, along in the vein of killer bees, murder hornets. They're actually Asian hornets, I think. They're 2 inches long. They can sting through protective clothing. And my question for you, Dr. Andrew, is having accidentally imported these, what new fun animal are we also going to have to introduce to our ecosystem to kill them all before they murder us?
So this is where I do need to do a little bit of research. I do not know the natural predator of Asian hornets is, but what, something bigger, something larger, or it could be something smaller. It could be a disease, could be a parasite.
Maybe those frogs from Australia.
But the frogs, didn't we introduce them as well?
The cane toads that have no natural enemies there and have proliferate.
We introduced rabbits to Australia, didn't we? And then we had to introduce myxomatosis to kill them.
Yeah.
So we've got a long tray of doing really bad ideas.
Wait a minute, that's not real?
Is that even a good idea?
That's not real, is it? They didn't introduce myxomatosis to kill rabbits.
As far as I'm aware, this is me having self-doubt, is they started putting myxomatosis in the water to cut down the rabbits because rabbits breed like rabbits. And the ones that got out presumably were healthy ones. And so there was no mixie there, and therefore added it back in.
That's amazing. I've just got to squeeze in a quick dad joke. We say rabbits breed like rabbits. I caught my kids out with, did you know that wrong is spelt wrong in the dictionary? And that occupied about 3 minutes where they were like, what? No, it can't be. I'm like, wrong is spelt wrong in the dictionary. And then they go and look it up. And obviously it is spelt R-W-O... oh, hang on. Spelling's not my strong spot. But it was spelt like W-R-O-N-G. I do know it. And they were like, I got the biggest dad joke groan. You're all going to go and try that with your kids now. Is that what the route you were going down, Matt, which is sort of natural predators? And in fact, Andrew, what do you know about this situation? We've got...
So the most important fact I know about this is that they go for a slaughter phase, which just sounds like the most terrifying thing that any 2-inch insect can do.
Okay, so that's the show title, Slaughter Phase. Describe the slaughter phase.
So this is when they just go into a hive, bite the heads off the bees, and then cause all sorts of... So the real concern here is they kill bees. And we like bees because they pollinate stuff, even if they do go around being little pains in the whatever during summer as we're trying to have a barbecue. So we need our bees for pollination, and these things want to go and kill them.
Oh, okay. So when they're called murder hornets, and by the way, because America needed a wave of killer hornets right now, Matt. I assume you all voted for that. Is that the biggest problem? Is that they're killing bees? They're not. I had this vision of them like going for the jugular, like, oh no, I'm covered in murder hornets. Ah.
Well, they do actually kill people too. In Japan, I think there's 40 to 50 fatalities a year from people being stung by these things. So they sort of actually do deserve that name on their own in terms of their interactions with humans. But I guess in terms of their interactions in the environment, yeah, the biggest problem is they do love to chow down on beehives, and it's problematic for any number of reasons.
Where did they come from? Why are they here? Why now?
They came from Asia, to the best of my understanding, and they are here now because one of them got trapped in a ship's hold or a container, and they said, "Oh, hey, look, a whole brand new continent and no predators, and oh, the bees are stupid here. They don't know how to defend against us. So let's have some fun."
So I think the other thing it's worth knowing about the way they kill people is, unlike bees where people are allergic, these actually, it's because sometimes they swarm and give you enough stings that they actually kill you. So it's not like there's a small number of people who die from bees every year because of allergies. A healthy person with no allergies can die from these. So it's a different risk, but the numbers are smaller, and most people are going to get stung by a bee because there are more bees around than there are murder hornets, which I thought you have to say with passion. Well, that's the thing. But eventually they're going to have to find a balance, isn't it? And presumably if they keep killing all the bees, they run out of food eventually.
So we shouldn't just burn down all the forest where we think they are to stop them. That's what you're saying.
I mean, what if you burn a forest? My expectation is the hornets will fly away and go, "Hey, you burnt your forest."
Okay, so they're not going to wipe out America at this stage, but is it how serious? Do we know how serious an issue it is, Andrew?
At this stage, we don't know, but anytime we get one of these new predators into any ecosystem, they can cause massive disruption, and we already know we have a huge challenge with the lack of bees. So I say it really is concerning, but at the same time, we really should be prepared for this to happen. Things catch rise on planes all the time. We don't always fumigate planes. I have been on some airlines who do. Where you sort of, when you're standing in the cockpit, I don't know if you've seen them walk down with 2 spray cans to kill everything.
Oh.
But it isn't routine, and so these things will go around. And of course, they go in food as well. So,
wow.
Yeah, so we're going to... I think it's a wait and see. I'm not going to make any claims because everything I say is going to be wrong in about 6 months. But I think predators moving to new areas can cause a huge amount of disruption. So whilst we may be okay, and we may be able to eradicate it before it becomes a problem, it certainly is a real risk, and there's a real concern there.
Good, but it's happening in America, which is far away, so my concern for this topic is waning. Matt, you've been helping your daughter with science. We've got a science guy here, so you can pose to him your CO2 thing.
Yeah, well, this is fun. I actually went into the kitchen the other day and said, "Hey, kid, what's up?" And she said, "Doing chemistry." I'm like, "Oh, what are you doing in chemistry?" Being all dad-like and like, "I took chemistry. I had 2 years of chemistry. I know what I'm talking about." And she goes, "Oh, I'm classifying hydrocarbons as saturated or unsaturated." I'm like, very good. Carry on.
Yeah.
That's butter, right?
Yeah, daughter. And but the thing is, she always likes it when I sit down and review her answers to her chemistry work with her before she submits them.
Is this GCSE level? So this is high school. So she's 15, 16?
15, yeah. And this is the standard chemistry class. But it's they're doing sort of like a little unit on organic chemistry, and they got the question: is CO2 an organic molecule? And she said, well, the definition of organic molecule is it has a carbon and blah blah. So since it's got a carbon, and it's clearly an organic one. And then it turns out that the teacher disagreed with that, and then we looked into it, and then it turns out like we're still not really sure: is carbon dioxide an organic molecule by definition? And you, being a whole sciencey doctor type person, seem to be perfectly placed to answer this question, because I'm sure you've had this chemistry in your life.
So my answer would be yes, it's organic.
Yeah, she'll be so delighted to hear that, because that's what she said too.
So I mean, I think it's one of these things. It depends who's talking about it and who's doing the chemistry, but it's carbon, oxygen, and I think the standard definition, because it does vary a bit, but will be something like it contains carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, these kind of elements. And if you look at it as any sort of in the realm of other molecules that are in organic chemistry, it's just like the carbonyl with the least number of hydrogens you can get. So if you add more and more hydrogen on, the more and more carbons on, you just get a longer molecule. And it's just like the bit on the end. So it doesn't really help you to sort of say it isn't organic. And a lot of the chemistry you can do with it is organic chemistry. You can add it onto things to make carboxylic acids, but it then does also have a whole host of chemistry that's sort of more inorganic and works with heavy metals and things like that. So it kind of likes to play both sides.
I'm trying to understand why I should care whether it's an organic molecule or not. What does organic mean? Does that mean we can make living things from it, but it's not necessarily living? So if we find organic molecules on Titan, does that mean, oh, there's life on... Where? Why should I care?
I think the best reason to sort of why we end up with the idea of organic chemistry is just to know where it came from. And it's really basically biochemistry 50 years too early. So people were trying to work out what the molecules of life were, what the chemistry of it was. Oh. And that's where they started to get into all these organic molecules. And we got very hardcore synthesis and building these molecules using basic chemistry.
Yeah.
But we didn't necessarily get to how it makes life. And then biochemistry comes along a lot later and they start to get a lot more of the enzymes and the proteins going. But in terms of your question about alien life, if you were to go to another planet and you find these organic molecules, they are still very, very closely related to the things we know that are capable of making life. So they're the sort of more basic chemicals and structures and things you need to make life than the biochemistry, which is sort of more how those things go on to do interesting, cool stuff and make things live. And that's why I started out as an organic chemist and I sort of ended up as a cancer biologist. So I've sort of generally made things more and more complicated for myself as I go.
So my takeaway from that is that the term organic is outdated and I don't have to learn what it means. That's good.
Well, yes and no. If you want to go into a career making drugs,
I don't.
Become an organic chemistry.
I'm not going to do anything Breaking Bad. Oh, you meant useful drugs that can help people.
No, I meant Breaking Bad.
Okay, well, look.
I didn't see making useful drugs. That's hard. You've got to do clinical trials.
It seemed like a lot of effort. I watched the first episode of Breaking Bad. No, in fact, I watched 1.5. And I got really fed up of it because it was just like, oh, he's coughing all the time. And the coughing did my head in. And I just gave up. I was like, I'm not going to watch a whole... In fact, I think I asked someone, does the coughing continue? And they're like, well, yeah, because he's got lung cancer. Was it lung cancer?
I think it's lung cancer. Yeah, it's not a happy diagnosis.
Yeah, so like, okay, I feel bad for you if that's the condition you're in, but I don't necessarily want to watch a TV program where everyone's coughing. So I never got into it. Also, there was a scene in a basement, Matt, where... What's right? What? Matt, you can come at me and say I'm being anti-coughist, that I should want to watch a program.
I could say that you're discriminating against those who have that challenge, but I won't. Instead, I'll say you just needed to go about 2 or 3 more episodes before it took the dark turn that made it so worth watching.
And there was a scene in a basement where there was the bad guy, and they had the bad guy like locked up or something, and he was like, they had him as his prisoner, and clearly they needed to just kill him because he was a baddie and he was going to kill them. And they spent like half the show deciding whether they should kill him or not. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm not sticking. This looks boring.
You were wrong.
So you like murdering people? That's what we've learned. If it's convenient.
I'm just saying, if you're going to do it, just make the decision quickly. And if you don't make the decision quickly, don't force me to watch you making that decision for 30 minutes. That's all. That's all I'm saying. Yeah, I might have got as far as the acid bath, actually. There we go. No, Colin. I like your wisdom, but no, I'm not watching the show. It's too late. That ship has sailed. Right, have we finished talking about organics? And I'm not bored, Rob, in the chat room. This face is not a bored face. This is the face of somebody who didn't really go to school, desperately trying to understand what you're saying. Because I think, Andrew, there is room for people like me who don't know science but are fans of science. Like, we should be fans of science in the same way we're fans of sport or followers of politics. You know, there should be a category, because there seems to be this kind of, not snobbery almost, but like self-snobbery. Oh, I don't know enough about science, so I should shut up.
I think the thing which is interesting about like fans of science as well is, what do you mean by that? So if I wanted to do a public lecture and get people engaged, and I want to do one on chemistry, the obvious thing to do would be to blow a lot of stuff up. And, you know, I'm very careful with my words there. And if you do that, you'll get a round of applause. People will love it. There's some great experiments. I've got what's best described as a mortar, but it's basically a steel tube with a place you put a fuse in the bottom, and you can put nitrocellulose in it, gun cotton.
I'm going to
go out. Fire ping pong balls.
Okay, this seems
Kids
illegal.
love it. But, you know, what do you learn from that? And the answer is, well, I use it to explain how nitrogen compounds, in the context of a longer talk, have a huge number of implications beyond fertilizer. In this case, you can fire stuff with it. But also, most kids, if you just put that on the table and said, chemistry, boom, you still get a round of applause. And I have left holes in the ceilings of a few schools to prove that this thing is effective. And the kids love me putting holes in their classroom ceilings.
A fun fact, to my understanding, that actually modern fertilizer was an attempt to convert leftover World War II time supplies of propellant and explosive that was nitrogen based.
Kind of. So the Harbour process, which fits on every GCSE course in the UK, so 16 plus, was developed to make bread. And that was pre-World War II. So Germany, because of the depression and the sanctions of World War One, actually no, it was earlier than that. But they had this facility. Actually, it was after World War One. They gave the technology to other people, but this was to feed Germany. They wanted to build up Germany, and that meant during World War II they had this ability just to make endless amounts of explosives. And then so it was the same process that makes nitrates a fertilizer and makes nitrates or explosives that the Harbour process was. But yeah, I've just got to get my timings right. I'm pretty sure he made it before World War One, and that kept them going through World War One. And then in World War Two, it gets more and more complicated. But it's a hugely important technology that was basically trying to feed Germany, also led them to have infinite supplies of explosives during the World Wars. And therefore, that's one reason they could continue so long. Because before then, if you wanted those materials, you were mining guano from penguins off the coast of Ecuador. And then that eventually moved into the Atacama Desert where we found nitrates there, but that again ran out. So the ability to make it was really important.
Guano is penguin poop.
Penguin poo, which is why it ran out, because it takes many years of penguins pooing on the islands to build up.
Ah, I see.
But the industry around penguin poo was enormous. It was more valuable than anything in the world. And then when they dug up all the penguin poo, they then had to find something else. And I believe, and talking about random stuff I know, that led to Chile and Bolivia to go to war over the Atacama Desert. And that was because they found nitrates there. So there was a massive war in that desert, which for years no one cared about because it's a desert.
I thought for a minute there was going to be a war over the penguin poop, and I was like, if this was a thing, if there was penguin poop wars, and this is the first I'm hearing about it, I was going to be very upset.
I mean, in a way, it was caused by a lack of penguin poo. They went to war.
Okay, good. I love it. I've learned today, Matt. Wouldn't have known that this morning, that I would end up discussing a war caused by the lack of penguin poop. But that's the beauty of this format.
Yeah, I do. And now I want to ask more chemistry questions because I actually have just. Do you read to your daughter at all?
I try to.
My daughter, I have read to her at bedtime since she was just a little tiny peanut. And I still read to her. The books have gotten a little more complex. And I actually just finished reading a book called The Disappearing Spoon, which is all
I've
about
heard of the book. Is it the Gallium Spoon?
It's about the Gallium Spoon, but he's written a whole book based on the periodic table. And it was fascinating and wonderful because, of course, she's studying chemistry. But the subject of things like quantum dots and stuff like that have come up. Were those around when you were studying and super atoms and stuff like that?
So quantum dots, I think, came during my PhD. So the main thing I know that occurred during my PhD, so this is 15 years ago, was all the modern genome sequencing. So I now work using the ability to sequence DNA rapidly on genome scale. Whereas when I was doing my PhD, we could do a tiny fraction of it. So we could do like the start of a gene, maybe.
Let's go from chemistry and stuff to space, because that's what everyone likes when we talk about science. We're going to talk about some spacey things and some sci-fi things now, although the chemistry has taken up way too much of the time, Matt. I did loads of notes on space and stuff. Never mind. We'll get to it now. And I'm going to drop the Zoom link in our live chat. So if you want to surprise Dr. Holding with a science question and have him say, well, it depends, and I don't really know anything, and then give us 17 interesting facts about that topic that he apparently knew nothing about, then be ready to respond to that, and we'll put you on our switchboard to join the Zoom call. I want to start with a bit of space news from sciencenews.org, an article by Lisa Grossman, who says it's very headline grabby, right? It's very headline grabby. He says black holes are near to us, and it makes you worry. The closest black hole to the solar system, the very closest, not a nearby one, the very closest black hole to our solar system ever spotted may be just 1,000 light years away, a unit of distance that I cannot imagine and do not know whether that is very far away or very close. This newfound dark neighbor, racist, is at least 4.2 times as massive as the sun and lives with two ordinary stars whose funny orbits give the black hole's presence away. So lots of questions there, Dr. Holding, to help unpack it for someone like me. Because nearby black hole makes me go, oh no, black holes are bad. I've seen bad Disney movies about black holes. Okay, so firstly, 1,000 light years away, is that worryingly close or so far away that I can't comprehend it?
I mean, it's basically, yeah, so far away you can't comprehend it. I mean, black holes, people get very scared about. And I mean, fairness, that Disney movie is quite painful to watch, so that's one good reason to avoid them. But they're not as... They are really magical, but not necessarily for the reasons people think they are. So if you took our sun and you just clicked your fingers and it became a black hole tomorrow, we'd probably be a bit annoyed there was no light. But the actual orbit of the Earth wouldn't change. And that's what a lot of people don't. They think black holes automatically have to eat everything up. And what they do is they have this really strong gravitational force. But gravity is based on mass. So if the sun became a black hole, it would still have the same mass. So it would still pull exactly the same.
Sir, Dr. Holding, sir, I have a follow-up question before you continue. So what you were saying there is you put a black hole in the center of our solar system with the same mass as our sun now. Yeah. And our sun is one solar mass.
It's convenient, that.
Yeah, I like the way that works. That's like when people use me as a unit of measure and say, oh, he's one spanner's tall. I'm that exact height that if someone's shorter than me, they get described as, oh, they're even shorter than you, Rich. I'm like, wait a minute. No, you're saying that like it's an extraordinary thing. I'm perfectly normal height. Thank you very much. I am exactly one spanner's tall. So you're talking a black hole with the same mass as our sun, but in my mind, I always thought you got black holes by having so much mass it collapsed in on itself. So how can we have a black hole of one solar mass?
So you're right there. The main reason most black holes are really big is they come from big stars. But that's why they suck so much in it almost, is because they got that mass. The other thing that's really important is when you're trying to work out a gravitational pull, you may have seen this experiment where you have a sheet of rubber and you put a weight on it and it pulls it down. And sort of the slope is how much the gravity pulls. If you put a bowling ball on it, you get quite a gentle slope at the edges of the bowling ball because it sort of spreads its mass across the rubber sheet. If you had like all the mass of a bowling ball and a pin and you dropped it on, the thing would dip down really, really tight in the middle. Oh, yeah. And the key difference there is when you go to the sort of distance where we're talking about the orbit of the Earth, so if we had our one solar mass black hole in the center of the solar system, they look about the same. But when you start getting really close to the sun, of course, it starts to smooth out because of the sort of more gentle shape of the sun. When you burn up, the black hole then starts to get that really deep sort of pressure into that rubber sheet or into space-time. And that means it's that really deep well. So the bit that's right round the point where it's gotten so tiny and pin-like, that's what causes these effects like light can't escape, these huge gravitational forces. So it's not the mass, it's how tiny it is a really important thing.
So I'm with you now. So where we are with Earth, we'd be okay because our curve in space-time would be kind of similar. But as we got closer, we would really notice it would be like a way bigger slope. So the black hole would still be more likely to suck us in and make us not escape than the sun would be, even though the black hole is the same overall mass.
Yeah.
I learned and comprehended a thing. Yes, this is a great day. Okay, then how worried do we have to be about black holes? Because they're represented as something fearful. Is a black hole 1,000 light years away a problem? And where does that put it? Does that mean it's orbiting the thing of the galaxy the same as us? Or is it in the middle?
Well, I mean, everything's orbiting the center. It's a little bit weird because the way the rates and the oscillations. I mean, in this case, you can't see it directly, so there's nothing even really falling into the black hole. So it's kind of cool math that they can show is there. If you look at other black holes we know about, what you see is a huge flare of X-rays off them or radio waves, and that's all the stuff as it falls into the black hole, it starts to accelerate faster and faster and faster. and that gives off a whole load of energy as it pushes together. And that energy we see as X-rays on telescopes. So those ones, if they were near you, would be bad because all the stuff flowing into it would be giving us a massive X-ray dose. But, you know, they're a long way away. And the same way as like the nearest star beyond ours doesn't really heat up the Earth much. Black holes aren't going to be causing a lot of X-rays to come and hit us. It's not like a supernova where they give all their energy in a tiny moment. These things are doing it quite quickly if you're on top of them. But in terms of galactic scales, they're taking a while to burn through that fuel. And at the end of it, they're just going to be for a while, they'll turn to a little black thing because, you know, singularity, it's very, very small. It's a point.
Yeah.
And then the really weird thing is, this is what Stephen Hawking was famous for, is they start to evaporate. So there's this weird bit of physics he showed, which is basically really terrifying maths, that over time your black hole will actually evaporate away again if nothing's falling into it.
Okay, so it's not like these perfect, all-consuming buckets. They will succumb to the same heat death as the rest of the universe as we sort of peter out towards nothing. Sorry about that, everyone. Sorry to drag you down.
It's depressing, isn't it?
Yeah, well, a little bit, but I'm hoping it's it's a little bit far away. It's trillions of years away, isn't it? The heat death of the universe. So it's not a pressing concern. We'll solve Corona first. Okay, good. Right, so I'm trying to get a scale in my head of like 1,000 light years away. So is there any way we can put that in context? Does 1,000 light years away mean it's really one of our neighbours? Or does it mean that it's like there's like 1,000 stars and then we get to this black hole?
So it's not like one of the really close, brightest stars in the sky. I mean, a light year is how long it takes light to travel in a year. So it takes light to travel 1,000 years. And one of the probably surprising things is whilst people underestimate the scale of the universe and the galaxy all the time, they actually kind of overestimate the scale of the distance to the nearest stars.
Yeah.
That like 5 light years is still a long way. So some of these nearest stars are actually quite a lot nearer than we're talking about.
Okay.
So it's close, but it's not in your backyard.
Okay, I'm going to put you on the spot then with some scales. So one,
I'm not gonna know.
So Earth to the Sun is 1 AU, 1 astronomical unit. That's convenient as well, that we're exactly at 1. I like that. And then if we say that Jupiter is like 90 AUs, where does that come in on the light scale range? Where do we cross over?
So, and I'm really just trying to find the depths of I think it takes about 15 minutes from light to get from the surface of the sun to us.
8 minutes.
8 minutes, is it?
Yeah, I think. Oh, yeah, I think so.
You did look it up. So if you think that's that's 8 light minutes.
Yeah.
So then, if we're talking about a light year, that's a lot further. Like, how many minutes are there in a year?
Yes. That's.
I mean,
yes, that's right. Oh, we've got a caller. All right. Well, let's see then. We've got Rob Andrew joining us on the line, and he's going to join. I've unmuted him as well. Rob, hello. Nice to see you. You joined in on our Missed Apex patron podcast. Do you have an intelligent, sciencey question for Dr. Holding? And welcome to the shed.
Well, hi. Thank you very much. Well, I don't know about intelligent, but during the lockdown and being stuck at home and stuff, I've been since before then, always a fan of watching the International Space Station go across. But of course, during lockdown, I get more of a chance to see it because I'm home and there's nothing else to do. But I've been enjoying the Starlink satellites coming across and the Elon Musk's new global internet plan by satellite. And they're great to watch now. What's your take on the pros and cons of whether they're a good thing, whether they're a bad thing, what they're going to ruin, what they're not?
Firstly, Andrew, what are they?
what are they? Well, they're satellites. So Elon Musk wants to build this sort of network of satellites all over the sky. That means we can always have internet from Elon Musk. And
that sounds great.
It does it though. I mean, always having internet, that sounds great. From one guy who has questionable ways of naming his children, that doesn't sound necessarily so great. Matt, I can see, is bursting to come in here.
Was there not a Doctor Who episode about this very thing and it turned out to be a bad idea?
I mean, my issue is, and actually this is not, rather making it personal going about Elon Musk, is it's a finite commodity. You can only put so much in orbit before you risk hitting other things in orbit. And we know people lose control of their satellites, but no one really owns space, which is a good thing. The bad thing is that means is Elon Musk is using up a resource for absolutely nothing. No one is charging him. The only thing he needs to do is put something there. So it's a bit like me going to America and putting a flag down and saying I own a chunk of it, which we have quite a good historical experience of the pros and cons of that. So I feel I'm really concerned that we have this issue that someone's making a land grab for something which really is a world resource, and it's been done by an individual in one country in one part of the world, which is not how we should be doing things today.
Yeah. We don't pay you for politics, though, Dr. Holding.
Well, but these things are politics. The other half is the fact it messes up astronomy.
There we go.
So these things reflect to go over. So if you sit in your garden, and it is amazing, you can sit there for about 15, 20 minutes and see this chain of stars move across the sky. And I've done it a few times by accident now. They're so obvious they've got to that point. That they are sweeping across everyone's photos. And if you're an astronomer studying the stars, someone to just decide to stick a load of things in the way of your camera lens is, again, someone's done this without having to take any permission, anyone having any say. He's just gone and done it. And I mean, that to me is what grates.
It's okay. I'm on it. I've spread a rumor up north that it causes coronavirus, and they'll just find a way to go rip them out of the sky. Andrew, are you a keen astronomer? Do you look in your garden often? Sorry, I meant Rob Andrew. Sorry, that confused me. It's Mr. Andrews. Mr. Andrews.
Oh, don't do that. That happens to me my whole life. I hate you for that.
Yeah, you shouldn't have two first names. That's not on me. Deep hole, 40 quid. Change it.
Yeah. No, I'm not a keen astronomer, but I just I love the whole idea of space and the thought that you can look up in the sky and that little dot has actually got people in it with the space station. I love that. And there's nothing quite like the Starlink satellites to watch at the moment anyway. So it's just a cool thing.
Yeah, it's very cool. Thank you very much for your call, Rob. I'm going to hang up on you there. Do come back and join us on Remain Indoors anytime. And how have you enjoyed your first visit to the shed?
Well, it's a little stuffy, but yeah, it'll do.
Oh dear, we'll have to get some professionals in to help us make this a nicer place. I tell you what, Matt, it's still looking kind of nice because we tidied up yesterday after we had a lady in the shed with us, and I have to say we got so much positive feedback in the chat room and via email afterwards about Alice that we're definitely going to have to get her back.
Oh yeah, no, she was an absolute treat and loads of fun. Fun fact: you call her a travel reporter, but over here. They're actually called traffic reporters. They talk about local traffic and stuff like that. So when you said you were having she was a travel reporter, I had this mental image. I had like all my travel stories, like when I went to France, when we went to Italy, the UK. I had all these things, and I was like so jealous. I'm like, really, your job is just to go to other countries and talk about how awesome it is? That sounds fun. And then she started talking about traffic on the A5 or whatever. I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah. Traffic reporter. Did I say? Yeah, but we call it going to the travel news. So, yeah, traffic. Yeah, you're right. Sorry about that. If you thought that yesterday's show or Tuesday's show was going to be like a travelogue talking about far-flung destinations, actually, it would have fit well because in the notes for a while, we've wanted to follow up on one of the comments about honeymoons, and we're going to talk about honeymoons in a future show. But we've got Dr. Andrew Holding here talking about sciencey things, so we won't divert him too much. I think we've answered the spacey stuff. We were going to go into a whole bit about sci-fi in movies, Andrew. Probably don't quite have time for that now because I vowed to myself that once we got to 45 minutes in the show, I would always then revert to some of my lighter questions to ask our guest or ask each other. So that is what I'm going to do. But I've got 2 minutes of scheduled programming left. I'm going to ask you this about films as a prelude to when you next come back and talk to us about sci-fi and films. Can you enjoy sci-fi ever as a man with good general knowledge about science?
Yes.
You can?
Yeah, of course I can.
But okay, hang on. Here's a question. Is your wife a scientist?
So her degree is mathematics and she now is a financial advisor. So
okay. So she's
drifted a long way away from anything with science if she ever was.
So she's a smart cookie, but still, does she not get fed up with you going, well, actually, that would never happen like that?
Absolutely.
Brilliant.
Totally. It's one of But I don't know. Some of that I think can be the fun of it. It depends on the sci-fi, and some sci-fi, you know, doesn't care and they do that well. Some sci-fi does care and they do that well, and some sci-fi is just terrible because it's terrible.
Yeah, like you keep, like as a man of science, you keep mentioning Star Wars, and I don't know whether you're doing it as a joke or whether to irk me, but clearly, like that is presented as sci-fi. If it's sci-fi, it's the worst sci-fi that's ever been released.
I mean, to me, there's different, as I said, different types of sci-fi, and I think Star Wars is very much in the sort of fun. It's more like fantasy. It's like fantasy in the future. If it
Yes.
had dragons, which it pretty much does, I wouldn't care. It has laser swords and it has the magic force. You're not going to have a big discussion there. What you could argue, and I think it gets a bit more complicated because it's been produced over so many decades now, is that it has an internal consistency. And I think that is still something that sci-fi does quite well, even if it's not trying to be super accurate on the science, is it says, here's a set of interesting rules.
Yes.
Now let's speculate what it does. And that can still be fun, even if it's completely off the wall.
Absolutely. It's got to set rules. So, I mean, Star Trek, it's reasonable for that. So, yes, faster than the speed of light travel, we don't like generally in science, but they establish the rule, and within that rule, they have their own limits, don't they? Like, oh, you can't go above 9.9, or it tears a fabric in the reverse tachyon polarity dilithium matrix. But it broadly sticks to those rules. Yeah.
I mean, the thing about Star Trek is you can see it's changed over time. So if you go and watch some of the earlier Star Trek, they have some of the most weird plots compared to today. I mean, and some of them are, you know, not actually science plots at all. So, you know, they obviously did huge things on cultural questions that they sort of pretended were science. You get to the early Next Generation stuff, and there's giant floating heads in space. I mean, if you watch Star Trek, you'll know there's a character Q who's basically a wizard.
Yes. Yeah, he's a wizard.
I mean, there are things like that, and I think as they progress, they found their niche and they find what works. And someone's just mentioned tribbles. Yeah, I mean, tribbles are not hardcore science, but they're fluffy and cute, so people like them. So
they should take all of the original series and say it's really good, we love it, but we're just going to unstitch that from canon forever, so we don't need to worry about that. And then also like select TNG episodes. Like, didn't they meet God in one of the TNG episodes? Like they got to the edge of the galaxy and there was a barrier.
So that's one of the movies. I think that's
right.
Star Trek 5. And that one, I think everyone who had anything to do with declares is just a terrible movie and they pretend doesn't exist.
Okay. Well, you could probably you could get rid of all the original series movies probably, except the one where they rescue a whale in a giant swimming pool. All that is legit. All of that washes. And just for the scene where he tries to talk to his mouse and says "computer," for that alone, we can forgive that movie.
I mean, I think we're at internet boards where people will argue this forever, and I personally don't have a problem that TV series may evolve. So we talk about that consistency. That's really good, but I don't see that Star Trek, when it's broadcast today, should be following the ideas of Star Trek in the 1960s, because all the stuff on psychic people, we've kind of proven that isn't a thing. Whereas back then there was active research into it.
Yeah.
So,
Diana Troy might not survive so much. But look, we will do an in-depth, and I'll gather listener input into that as well. Next time you come on, we'll do a full-on like takedown of some popular sci-fi and explore the themes. Does that sound good? We can do that.
We'll have a proper geek out.
Yeah, we can fill a show like that.
We'll talk about whatever things people can throw at us, and we'll see if we get angry or not at them.
Okay, let's get angry about these questions. No, that's not a good segue. These questions are not designed to make anyone angry. I guess these are for you and Matt, though. Let's see. These are random questions that I found on a Facebook post. And the person who shared it said, I don't normally do these, but I was bored. So here it is, 40 questions about myself to answer. And I nearly answered it as well. And I thought, oh, no, don't. You've gone too far if you actually do it. But I saved the questions. They're quite good, almost like icebreakers. So that's what we'll call them, late icebreakers. How many TVs are there in your house, Dr. Holding?
3, 2.
You must know how many TVs are in your house.
I think there's one under the table somewhere we don't use.
Oh, I see. Yeah, oh dear. In fact, here's one. Apart from phones, how many total screens do you think there are in your home?
I'm looking at 3 right now.
Yeah, I know. I was going to say that as well. Yeah, so TVs, we haven't got any TVs upstairs anymore, and I'm really upset about it because I've always thought to have a TV in the bedroom so you can lie in bed and watch telly. Like, are you a TV in bed telly person?
So I think kind of, but these days I would just use a laptop or something.
Yes, that's right. Or you get a thing. I always wanted a projector in the room so you can have full on like bedroom movie time. But wife just doesn't want to associate that. Nick says no. The bedroom is for resting, sleep time. You need to switch off rather than have it as your place of entertainment and then go to sleep.
The one restriction our daughter thanks us for to this day is not allowing her to have a phone in her bedroom.
Oh.
So I might have to side with your wife on this one.
Yeah. Well, I always grew up with like TV on, and I'd happily like fall asleep with the TV on. I don't know. It's, if for her, if she fell asleep with like a lamp on or something, it ruins her whole year for some reason. Whereas I'm like, oh, whatever, it doesn't matter.
So we often watch TV in the evenings, and I'll watch TV and my wife will fall asleep, even if it's a movie she picked to watch. She puts movies on to fall asleep. Like,
Yeah.
That's what couches are for.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
That's what we do.
All right, cool. Right, TV. So anyway, I lost that battle. So there's like there's one TV in the house which I find shocking, but there are a couple in the loft waiting for that moment. I want one where it comes out of the bottom of the bed and it rises up in the bottom of the bed, and you've got like a 50-inch screen there, and I can watch the news on a 50-inch screen in the morning. Does not wash. So let's hope my second wife is more tolerant of TVs around the house. Let's go for another icebreaker. Broken bones, Dr. Holding. Have you had any broken bones?
Not knowingly.
That doesn't make any sense.
Well, I think there's a rib that seems to be in a really weird position, which hurt a lot when someone kicked me square in it as a teenager, and I did nothing about, and it's still in a weird position. So I may have broken a rib, and there's nothing you can do about that anyway. And I probably broke a toe at some point because everyone does that without realizing.
Ribs are horrible, and there's really no difference. I've definitely done both. There's no difference between an actual broken rib and a bruised rib in the pain. The difference seems to be the length of time. So if it goes away after about 5 days, 2 weeks, they tend to say, well, then it was a bruised rib. But if it's like 8 weeks, then it was a broken rib, because they won't generally x-ray it.
So they just make it up.
Yeah, I think they just make it up because they won't x-ray it. They never check. I've had a few chest-related injuries, and no, they've never x-rayed them. It's just when it's 6 weeks later and it's still like, oh my God, that really hurts. They go, oh yeah, that was broken then. But I had one doctor, and fair enough, it was a military doctor. I said to him, look, I'm really struggling here. It was the join between the rib and the sternum. And I was like, honestly, every time I breathe, it hurts. And he was like, well, you need to breathe less. Like, that's not a thing. But he was like, well, breathe shallower. I'm like, oh, horrible. Matt, you must have broken some bones as a bicyclist.
Actually, my worst cycling injury was a separated shoulder, but I've broken both of my collarbones. I've broken several fingers and had a couple of dislocations as well. Yeah.
Are they all trumpet-related injuries?
No, they were all sports related, believe it or not. The worst one was when I was in 6th grade, and we were going off the high to the 3-meter board, and we talked to a friend of mine who was terrified of it. I was like, no, I'll go out first. You can go right after me. And he's like, okay, but he was terrified. So I jumped off and I was coming back up, and he literally just closed his eyes and ran off the board. As soon as I disappeared, he landed right on top of me and just like snapped my collarbone.
I don't like the noise you made there. It brought it to life.
Yeah, that's pretty much what it sounded like. So that was my left collarbone. And then the right one, I used to do amateur wrestling when I was in high school. You know, like Olympic freestyle wrestling, and I was wrestling someone and landed on my shoulder, and it just went like that.
Yeah, I don't like the sound you make for bone breaking. Yeah, it makes it far too real. I broke my arm on a bicycle, Matt. I'm obviously not as good at a bicyclist as you. The scar's not going to show up on the stream there. But yeah, I broke like loads of bones in there and had it cut open and had like little metal rods and everything. My dad said he would race me to the police station to get it coded. You have to get it like stamped or coded. And he was like, you go on your bike, I'll go on the car. This is some grade A responsible parenting. And then he started like really revving as he came up behind me and beeping. I'm like, I've got to beat him. So I like mounted the curb and smashed into a wall. So that was good fun. 12 years old. So there you go, Dr. Holding. I'm going to say you did break a bone. I'm going to give you that credit, and you score a point, which you can take with you. You can add that to your Twitter bio if you want, which is...
At Andrew Holding. I'm not going to read out the whole bio.
I think you should make it at Dr. Andrew Holding. You should change it.
No.
You should big it up. If I had, it's like having a six-pack. If I had a six-pack, I would never wear a shirt. Even now, I would be sat here on the stream shirtless. If I had a PhD, I would introduce myself as Dr. Andrew Holding, using my name, obviously.
Have you seen this thing that a lot of newspapers won't actually print doctor if it's a PhD, but will do if you're medical?
Really? And how do you feel about that?
Well, it's less of an issue for me, but what a lot of women in science get very angry that they'll be called Miss whatever, and they're professors.
I'm careful to call you Dr. Holding. I'm ultra careful when it's a female PhD holding person, like when we have Dr. Michelle Tempest on. And even though saying Dr. Tempest makes it sound like I'm mocking the situation, because that is a very cool bad guy name. Yes, I'm always very aware to say that doctorate. Matt.
Well, the chat room would like to suggest Dr. _ and our friend Mr. Phil feels your pain. He says he has a 1-pack.
Yeah, definitely squidgy, as my kids describe it. Oh man, they are on me now for being old. So, Dr. Holding, you've got lockdown hair, just like I have as well at the moment. What it's doing is it's showing up the greys that are normally hidden away with my haircut, and they're like, Dad, you're so old, look at your hair. Okay, good. Right, okay.
I don't know what we would add to that.
Oh, I don't know. Maybe an amusing anecdote about your kids saying you're old. But for the absence of that, we'll look forward to Dr. Holding coming back for some sci-fi science. You can follow Matt Trumpets at MattPT55.
Yep, that's the one.
Are you promoting anything? Books out?
The wife had a sale. Go buy her books. If you need online trumpet lessons, you can always call me. I've got nothing better to do right now.
Online trumpet lessons. You can email Matt. That would probably be a better thing. Email him at Matt. No, hang on. That's not how emails work. MattPT55@gmail.com. You can email me for any reason. spannersready@gmail.com. I can help you connect with your audience or your employees by running live Zoom conferences and moderating them for you. I can even produce your podcast. Go to richardreddy.com for more details and to get a quote. Follow me online at SpannersReady and the show at Indoors Remain. I'm still pretending it was on purpose. Until we see you next, probably Monday, work hard, be kind, and have fun. And probably despite what you're told in the coming days, might be best if we all just, remain indoors. That was not